It is not the critic that points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust, sweat, and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who is at the best, knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who, at worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory or defeat. This quote was from Theodore Roosevelt, one of the American presidents from the early 20th century. Just a little reference. In The Night of the Museum, he's the guy that Robin Williams plays. Just a weird reference, but yeah, that's who he is. I don't know too much else about him, but I love that quote. It's called the Man in the Arena, and it really speaks to the idea that in life, if you have a pursuit that's worth fighting for, the external results more or less become irrelevant, but what's more important is your endeavor and the fact that your fire within can't be tamed, if that makes sense. So look, I'd like to go through that quote in more detail. I think, in challenging periods of my life, that quote has had a lot of weight. It's held a lot of weight for me, and it's kind of been a guiding beacon as to, how I make decisions and the way in which I want to live my life. And obviously at times, it is difficult. It is difficult to be that person who, regardless of the results, can have deep satisfaction of the way that they've gone about it. And if you saw my previous video on the 5 principles of Atlas, I think that ties in really nicely to, I suppose, all of those values, particularly abundance and tenacity. Abundance essentially centers around the notion that you are enough regardless of the results that you achieve. And I guess what Theodore Roosevelt was getting at in The Man in the Arena is that there's always going to be critics. There's always going to be people who scrutinize you, who will judge you, who, if you start producing content, are going to circulate that content and mock you. That is an inevitability of life. But I think an important thing to remember, as Roosevelt is alluding to, and it's obviously a different generation, social media can make this much more potent, I guess, the mocking and the sending around. But the critic that scrutinizes you, they're not where they want to be in life either. There's no one who critiques you who is at a higher level than you. And if they are, well, then they're just severely misusing their time. So that's something to consider, knowing that in a lot of these circumstances where you fear being judged, the people that are actually judging you are in the cheap seats, while you're the one that's investing time, energy, blood, sweat, tears into a pursuit that's so meaningful for you, that in essence, that it really shouldn't be relevant what these people's opinions are, because they're not the ones that are actually endeavoring to make themselves and the world a better place. So it's so important that, we address this fear of judgment, fear of being criticized, fear of being mocked. But if that gets in the way of you living your most genuine, authentic life, then it would be something that's worthwhile considering for you. What is it in your life that you're being held back from because of the fear that you may be judged? And a lot of the time, when I've been thinking about this particular issue, and obviously starting out and making content is a daunting task at the best of times, but whoever comes to mind of someone who criticizes me, I think the reality is that I actually don't really care about them. And their life and their values don't necessarily align with mine. So if the worst thing that comes from putting out this content is that people whose opinions I don't really care about mock me, then so be it. Inherently, as humans, as people, we want to be universally liked, but in this modern day and age, and if you want to live an authentic life that's genuinely the life that you want to lead, then there's always going to be people that don't agree with you or don't necessarily like what you're doing, and that's absolutely okay. That's what Roosevelt's getting at here, that it's those who overcome that fear of judgment and lead the life that they want to live are the ones that truly can hold their head high, regardless of the results. Now, we all want to achieve. We all want to achieve the big goals that we set out to, our big North Star goals that are so important, that drive us every day. But what happens if we don't get there? You know, it is a realistic situation where we don't always achieve the big goals that we set. But the person who we become in the process of setting those big goals is far and away better than the person who never tried, you know. And you may be thinking, well, it's not going to work out for me. There's so many people starting out this certain pursuit. Well, firstly, you'll never know if you never try. And secondly, the person that you're going to become in the process, rather than, even if they don't achieve those results, is far and away better than the person who will just sit on their hands and do absolutely nothing about their current situation. And I think that's really important. Just to realize in your life where that fear of judgment may be seeping in. And for me, I'll put my hand up straight away and say, for years and years, I've been so conscious of what people have thought of me. And I guess I've reached the point in my life where, not that I don't care anymore, I always want to be appreciated and well liked within my community, but I understand that with what I want to do, there are going to be some people who don't agree with it, or some people that think that posting content on social media is just a silly hobby and isn't worthwhile of respect and status within the community. You know, maybe that was me at a certain point, hiding my own insecurities of following the school system and going through uni and trying to discredit the people who are doing something like this, of putting themselves out there and voicing their opinions and their views, and ultimately helping a lot more people than you can usually help, just with the right widespread reach of social media. So I think that's a really important consideration, to always realize where you are potentially being held back by the fear of criticism and scrutiny of others. It's just such a powerful quote that I'm drawn back to at times. And one thing I think that is also really potent is that if you're doing something that's virtuous, something that brings, good output to the community, if you're being a kind person in the process, if you're really striving to something that brings so much meaning to your life, then you should never be dampened by, I guess, the voice of the man in the cheap seats that's trying to cut you down. Because we live in a society where there's, tall poppy syndrome, which essentially means that those who are trying to succeed and strive for greatness in society are cut down to the level of everyone else. And that's essentially that's happening widespread in these communities, in our world. So just be conscious of that. And if anything, if there's one thing to take out of this whole video, it's just to be 100% genuine and authentic to who you want to be. And that's really hard to sort of come to grips with, because we go through our lives and we're in school and we're kind of, these ideas and what's respected, what gives you status is thrust upon you. In my community, in my country, it's if you're good at sports, if you're academic, if you're smart, if you're social, if you're good looking, if you can approach girls, if you can form a relationship, then you're respected within our society. And these are well ingrained into our community, as I'm sure they are into a lot of other communities. But there comes a point where you need to realize that genuine fulfillment and satisfaction in life comes from being aligned with your 100% authentic self. And at the end of the day, we're all going to be 6 feet under in the dirt. And if you get to the end of your life and realize that, I may have pleased people. There were people that didn't really love me, but also didn't really hate me. I was just kind of, I had some impact on my family, and I just kind of went through the motions and lived a life that, people tend to praise and serve the community. I feel as though that would be a pretty awful regret to have. I think in life sometimes, if you are going to follow meaningful pursuits that you're driven to achieve every single day, you are going to polarize people. There are going to be some people who disagree with you, who may not like you, and that's okay. I think the worst thing we can do as people is dampen our enthusiasm towards a certain endeavor in fear of people thinking bad of us. Like, naturally, if there are people that disagree with what we're doing, there are going to be people that absolutely love what you're doing, and people that you have a massive impact on. And inherently, that's all we're trying to do. We're trying to make our lives better, but most importantly, we're trying to serve others in a way that improves their lives. There was a quote that I heard once, it was on I think it was a Modern Wisdom podcast, and it was that in 2 or 3 generations, more often than not 2 generations, no one will even remember your name. Can you remember the name of your great-grandfather? I honestly can't. which is a scary thought because that's your grandfather's father or your grandmother's. And to think that they raised your grandparent and you don't even remember their name, you don't even remember what they do or what they did. So wouldn't that give you more reason, if you can't even remember 3 generations ago from your family, to live the life that you want to live, and to put the fear of judgment and criticism and scrutiny well back in the rearview mirror and just focus on the life that you want to live? I think that's a fairly good reason, because I don't know about you, but for me, I feel as though the years are flying by, and there's only so many years that we have that we can make a genuine impact on our lives and change our lives to give ourselves more of a platform to improve the lives of others. I'm 23 years old now. I feel as though the past 5 years have flown by in an instant. I feel as though I'll be 30. By then you look to settle down, have a family, and when you have those commitments, when you're tied down in that sense, there's not that same, I guess, freedom to change. You definitely still can. It's never too late, but we don't have the same luxuries as we do when we're young. But it's no coincidence that when we're young, the scrutiny and the fear of judgment that we possess is at its absolute highest. So it's at its utmost importance. It's never been more important for you than right now to put that fear of judgment behind you, because at the end of the day, the people that you fear you're being judged by, you don't even care about. You care about your close circle, your brothers, your family, the people that are guiding you, the people that are making you better, the people that are holding you accountable. And realistically, that's all that matters. There's going to be a community of people that you eventually can grow and can help. But for now, starting out in your journey, whatever that may be, it may not be filming content. It may be, changing career, doing something that's a bit left of center, something that's a bit unconventional. If that's who you 100% are and who your spirit and identity aligns with, then that is what you should be pursuing. And there's no one that can tell you otherwise. So if at any point you're questioning the direction in your life, you're fearing that others may judge you, the man in the arena is such a powerful, powerful quote. I wouldn't even call it a quote. I just call it like a mantra or an ethos, a way that you can live your life and how you can model your life on. And if there's one thing you can take out of this video, or one premise, it's to not fear the judgment of others, regardless of external results. If there's a pursuit that you feel really drawn to that provides meaning to your life and to the lives of others, then that's something you should go all in on, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And our life on this earth is so brief, is so short, that we only have a small window to really make a mark on the world. And at the very worst, you don't have that meaning that you hope for in terms of making the impact on the lives of others, in terms of, whether it's social media or achieving the goals that you wish to, but at least you lived your life with passion and with heart and aligned with who you really are. And I'm sure, I don't know about you, but if I'm on my deathbed and I knew deep down that I lived my life in full alignment with who I was, I think I'd be pretty satisfied. So the man in the arena, I try my best to articulate those points as it always is. It's pretty raw, no script in front of the camera apart from reading the quote. Obviously I wasn't going to commit that to memory, but it's a quote that I absolutely love and hold it dear to my heart. So hopefully it does have a lasting impact on you. Thanks guys.